NDPC of the data breach? If yes, indicate the date and In today's digital age, protecting sensitive data is more critical than ever before. But what happens when data breaches occur? The Data Breach Register serves as a centralized database where organizations are required to report incidents involving the unauthorized access, disclosure, or loss of personal information. Why organizations need a data breach register? Mandatory reporting. Organizations must promptly notify the Nigeria Data Protection Commission and affected individuals in the event of a data breach. This ensures swift action to mitigate risks and safeguard personal information. Detailed records. The register maintains detailed records of reported breaches, including the nature of the incident, the type of data compromised, and the remedial actions taken by the organization. Compliance and enforcement. Non-compliance with data breach reporting requirements can result in significant penalties and reputation damage for organizations. The register helps enforce regulatory standards and promotes a culture of data protection. Here is a step-by-step guide on how to use the Data Breach Documentation Register. About the organization. Fill the name of the organization. Fill the registration number issued by the Corporate Affairs Commission. Fill the location where the organization is physically situated or conducts its operations. Fill the official email address of the organization. From the list below, pick the most appropriate based on the nature of your core business activity. Data Protection Officer. Fill the name of the designated Data Protection Officer. Fill the email address of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the phone number of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the Data Protection Officer's acquired data protection privacy certifications. Details of data breach. A unique number that indicates where in the register a data breach is reported and documented. A unique identification number or code assigned to each documented data breach. Specify the exact date and time the data breach occurred if known. Specify the exact date and time the data breach was discovered. Provide the number of data subjects affected. If the number or access to personal data. Measures taken or to be taken. Did you inform all individuals affected? Indicate yes or no. List other regulators informed. When did you first notify the NDPC of the data breach? If yes, indicate the date and time. Remedial action. Kindly state the remedial action taken. To place an order, kindly visit dataprotectionacademy.com NG-store or call 0816 82444. Critical than ever before. But what happens when data breaches occur? The Data Breach Register serves as a centralized database where organizations are required to report incidents involving the unauthorized access, disclosure, or loss of personal information. Why organizations need a data breach register? Mandatory reporting. organizations must promptly notify the Nigeria Data Protection Commission and affected individuals in the event of a data breach. This ensures swift action to mitigate risks and safeguard personal information. Detailed records. The register maintains detailed records of reported breaches, including the nature of the incident, the type of data compromised, and the remedial actions taken by the organization. Compliance and enforcement. Non-compliance with data breach reporting requirements can result in significant penalties and reputation damage for organizations. The register helps enforce regulatory standards and promotes a culture of data protection. Here is a step-by-step guide on how to use the data breach documentation register. About the organization. Fill the name of the organization. Fill the registration number issued by the Corporate Affairs Commission. Fill the location where the organization is physically situated or conducts its operations. Fill the official email address of the organization. From the list below, pick the most appropriate based on the nature of your core business activity. Data Protection Officer. Fill the name of the designated Data Protection Officer. Fill the email address of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the phone number of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the Data Protection Officer's acquired data protection privacy certifications. Details of data breach. A unique number that indicates where in the register a data breach is reported and documented. A unique identification number or code assigned to each documented data breach. Specify the exact date and time the data breach occurred if known. Specify the exact date and time the data breach was discovered. Provide the number of data subjects affected. If the number is not known, give an approximate number. Description of breach. Explain the process by which a security breach resulted in the unintentional or deliberate loss, alteration, disclosure, or access to personal data. Measures taken or to be taken. Did you inform all individuals affected? Indicate yes or no. List other regulators informed. When did you first notify the NDPC of the data breach? If yes, indicate the date and time. Remedial action. Kindly state the remedial action taken. To place an order, kindly visit dataprotectionacademy.com NGSOR or call 0816 82444.
Good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Module 5 of our cybersecurity training. Today's training will focus on helping financial institutions understand how to assess risk they will likely be exposed to. To gain the most from this module, it is essential that participants have attended our previous live sessions because we've dealt on the foundation to today's training by defining key terms and also sharing templates Chief Information Security Officers can use to document hardware and software used within the financial institution. You are free to ask questions using the chat box at any point in time. We'll also be looking at the disaster recovery plan in the course of today's training so that as an expert, you can assist your institution in drafting a robust disaster recovery plan. Thank you. Okay, so I'm sharing a slide that we'll be using in the course of the training. So now, as a financial institution, you have different assets that you make use within your institution. And in previous sessions, we've talked about how to document these assets. So we will be looking at what are those threats, what are those vulnerabilities that this asset will likely be exposed to, and what are the mitigating controls you should put in place. So this is a practical training session, and you will get the best out of this training if you have previous knowledge on our training sessions from module 1 up to module 4. So every financial institution is expected to have a core banking application. And that core banking application will be vulnerable to weak authentication mechanism if the right thing is not done. So what do we mean by a weak authentication mechanism? This simply means vulnerabilities due to the inability for that system to identify users. So let me give an instance. If your core banking application can be compromised, whereby people can be able to use brute force attack to break into the system, it means that there's a vulnerability known as weak authentication mechanism, because someone can guess a username and also a password, most especially when you use default password. That is why once a vendor supplies you with a system, you must change the password immediately, because there are databases online that some of these admin default password can be harvested. So you don't use default password, and you make sure that there are strong authentication mechanism, like implementing two-factor authentication, implementing things like OTP, so that having a username and a password is not going to compromise the system if it gets into a wrong hand, because there is an OTP or a biometrics or facial capture that is also implemented. So your core banking application may be exposed to weak authentication mechanism. So you should know that that is a vulnerability. Now, the next thing we should ask ourselves, what is the system? It means that it is likely it can be compromised. And if that happens, the impact will be high, because somebody can transfer funds without having the right control, right? And the mitigant control you should put in place is to provide multiple verifications. You can say, okay, we're implementing password, we're implementing token, we're implementing biometrics. And this token, you can use a soft token whereby a 4-digit or 6-digit or 7-digit code is sent to the text, to the phone number of the user or the email. So to be able to control this weak authentication mechanism, you can implement multi-factor authentication. So that is what you have in place, assuming this vulnerability exists on your core banking application. Now, if you don't have that, you can also ask yourself, what other things can the financial institution implement moving forward to ensure that there is data security? So you can decide to advise your management, okay, let us make sure that we implement regular password expiration procedures, so that after a 30-day or 60-day or 90-day, the password that users are using automatically asks them to what? Reset it. So if you don't have a MFA as a mitigating control, you can also say, okay, why not we implement this? We make sure that the password expires after defined days. So 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. So that is what you can advise your management to do. Then when you come to this section that talks about comments, you can now decide, okay, we will transfer this risk to our third-party vendor to implement. Do you understand? Because you may not have the knowledge, and you may not have the tools to implement it. So you can transfer this risk to your third party vendor. That our third party vendor have to make sure that there's multiple forms of verification to log into the core banking application. That is for the first asset. In previous training, we've defined what assets are, and we've also told you how to have your asset inventory, both for your hardware and your software. Today's training is more about assessing this risk and trying to make sure that we minimize the risk attached to it. So the next asset that a financial institution will have is likely going to be a laptop or desktop. Now, this laptop may be vulnerable to obsolete systems or application. Like Microsoft, for example, phased out Windows 10 recently. So if your financial institution is using Windows 10, it means that you are vulnerable to end of life application. So what does that mean? It means that this application will likely not receive security updates. So if your core banking application is running on a desktop that is not going to receive security updates, of course, it is going to pose a risk. So as your financial institution is getting customers, this may also pose a big risk down the line because no security update for the devices you use. So the CISO is expected to advise top management that we have to migrate to Windows 11 because what we currently use will not get security updates. So what will be the likelihood of exploit? It will be likely because you are already vulnerable. And the impact will be high because customer details can be what? Impacted. So what mitigating control can you put in place? Now, management and the board of directors can allocate resources for the system upgrade or replacement. And it's not just about the Windows. Maybe your antivirus or maybe some other software you use are no longer supported. Or maybe the hardware itself is no longer supported. So what should the board of directors do at this point? They have to allocate resources for system upgrade and replacement. Now, what can they also do? That is, what are the things they can also implement, right? They can develop a plan to say, okay, for a period of 5 years, we will gradually upgrade all our systems so that we don't have systems that are end of life prone. Do you understand? So that is when they cannot have a plan, a strategic plan, identifying all devices that are on the end of life state and making measures applicable that will help the institution phase out these devices gradually because the cost may be too much if they want to do it at once. So now, under the comment section as the CISO, you can decide to say, okay, board of directors or management are expected to do ABC. First, provide resources. Two, come up with a strategic plan to gradually phase out devices based on their level of importance. So, for example, IT can start. Then after IT, you can move to finance. You can move to HR. You understand? Based on the criticality of data that is stored on those devices. So the next asset are employees. Employees are assets. Now, you may be vulnerable to inadequate staffing. Maybe you don't have enough staff. Maybe your staffs are not too skilled, especially when it comes to the IT unit. So if you don't have skilled IT personnel, that can also pose a risk. And will that be exploited? Yes, because if the hackers, the fraudsters know that the people working in a particular financial institutions are not too tech savvy, then they can begin to simulate threats, vulnerabilities, social engineering attack that can be successful. And when that is successful, that is when you begin to see that funds have been transferred or data have been breached. So, what mitigating control can a financial institution have? One thing they can do is to make sure that when they are doing training, They cross-train all employees. Irrespective of your unit or department, you know what is expected to be done by department A or department B. So a practical instance would be, let's say for example, IT is having a training on phishing simulation. So they should not just train only IT staff, they should also train other staff. Peradventure, the person who is in IT goes on leave, other staff will also have that knowledge to fill that gap. Another instance is the staff working in customer service. If the staff working in customer service goes on leave, there should be another staff who understand that role and responsibility to fill the gap. So the mitigating control you can have in place will be cross-training staff so that irrespective of your department, everybody gets a uniform training. Then things that can be implemented moving forward can be developing a recruitment strategy so that you can attract skilled personnel. If you look at some of the top firms, they have an internship program whereby they train youths, give them some working tools, they join the workforce, and after a period of time, those people that excel are now retained and promoted. So you can come up with that kind of strategy, right? As an institution, starting with the core members, looking at how they can come in. When you look at the best heads, you bring them into the system, and as they progress. So you must have a recruitment strategy to attract the best people to come to your institution. So under this comment section now, you can decide to say, we are delegating this responsibility to the human resource department to come up with a form of internship program that will attract youth that are skilled and knowledgeable to come to the workforce. You understand? Most of the banks, they have this kind of strategy. You understand? If you follow them, you'll see they have all this internship program they do, and with that they get the best hands to come to work for them. So another asset we'll be looking at will be your digital files. Every financial institution should have digital files. Now, these digital files may be vulnerable to weak authentication mechanism, just as your core banking application. So what should be done? You understand? Now, I've explained weak authentication mechanism earlier on. It simply means where unauthorized access is possible because your system can be easily compromised. You understand? I can guess your password, or you are using a vendor supplied password. You understand? Many of these vendor supplied passwords are either 123400000, things that can be easily guessed. You understand? And if that is possible, it is very likely it will be exploited and it will have an high impact on the institution. So in such instance, users should be required to authenticate using multiple ways. So don't let your system be only username and password. After username and password, an OTP can be sent to the designated staff email or a mobile number. The person puts that OTP and the person is granted access. Or you can use hardware using tokens that can be generated by the person clicking on that device. So you can also advise management that moving forward, they should encourage or mandate regular password changes, because using a password for a long period of time comes with risk. Don't forget, you may unknowingly save this password on your browser, and that is also a risk. So under the comment section, you can designate this to IT to enforce password resets, so that after a period of 20, 30, 40, depending on the organization, you understand, passwords should be changed. And when passwords are changed, you should not be able to reuse your old password. You understand? And your password should at least have 12 characters, uppercase, lowercase, special symbols. So these are things for IT to implement. The next asset financial institutions will also have will be their policies and procedures. So one vulnerability that can get these policies and procedures to have a high risk will be weak business continuity and incident response plan. So what does this mean? Now, if an organization doesn't have an incident response plan, anytime they experience a data breach or cyber attack, they will not have the ideas and the knowledge on how to mitigate this potential risk, because they will be working on the spot. They will be trying to respond to this situation because they've never planned for something like this to happen. That is why in the course of today's training, we'll be looking at disaster recovery plan, and that will guide you on how to prepare in advance, because every institution may likely face a cyber attack or data breach, irrespective of your size or how good your IT department is, right? So, moving forward, what can be the controls the institution can have? So, you can also ensure that every staff receive training on how to respond to incidents, security incidents. You can make it a mandatory onboarding course for your employees, that in case you experience a data breach, these are what you should do. First, you need to call your data protection officer or the chief information security officer. Two, you may decide, okay, log out from the system, change your password. So you should have trained your staff in advance of potential risk. And what can be implemented moving forward is what we call conducting risk assessment. Just as we are explaining in today's session how you can conduct risk assessment. So moving forward, you can look at what are the assets within the financial institution. What are the risks these assets are exposed to? What can management and the board of directors do to, so in such a case, this can be ensuring that IT and human resources carry out incident response training, you understand, so that every staff is equipped with the prerequisite knowledge to be able to mitigate any cyber risk. Do you understand? Then your server is also an asset, right? Because this server may be on premise, or if you use a cloud solution, you can also have your server on the cloud. So this server will be vulnerable to data loss. You understand? It will be vulnerable to data loss. It's a technology. So what this simply means is that there may be shortcoming in the control of the data resident on this server, either on premise or on the cloud, due to data leakage or unauthorized access. So if this is possible, it can be exploited, right? So what control can be in place? You can encrypt data at rest. You can encrypt data on transit, and you can use strong encryption standard. So moving forward, things that can also be implemented will be developing a comprehensive data loss policy that will ensure that the organization data is well encrypted and protected, whether it's on premise or on the cloud. So you can come up with your data loss prevention practice procedures so that every staff is aware of this document. So under the comment section, what you can do is to ensure that every employee and third-party vendor understand the data loss procedures and policies that should be implemented. So the CISO can carry out this training internally, both for the staff and both for the third-party vendors. Now, your CCTV is also an asset, right? Because it has data, it captures data. Now, it may be vulnerable to inadequate patch management. This means that you don't update it. You understand? Most of the time, CCTV don't get the attention that it deserves, because when the software or the hardware becomes obsolete, nobody really care to update it, right? So what you can do is to make sure that your CCTV gets the necessary updates, both the hardware component and the software component. So in terms of the mitigating controls that can be in the institution, will be within the institution, all inventory of assets are kept. And when there's need for updates, updates are performed. Do you understand? And things that can be implemented is risk assessment. You must prioritize every asset based on the kind of data that is resident on it, right? A CCTV will capture people's video, people's pictures. You understand? That is important, because you don't want somebody's picture to be exposed on the internet because the person visited your institution. So what do? Make sure you have software updates, right? So that can be implemented by the IT unit, right? Then physical documents are also assets. They can be prone to human error, mistakes, oversight. Somebody may keep a document carelessly or misplace a document on transit. So your physical documents are also assets that should be protected. So what you can do in this regard is to educate employees that, see, hard copy documents should be treated properly, soft copy documents should be treated properly. These are the policies, these are the procedures, and these are the best practices. So moving forward, you can have a training plan. You can also conduct regular audit of your systems and network so that you can identify any system misconfiguration, right? That will lead to all these fiscal document being accessed. Maybe you need to implement controls. Sometimes it may not even be a technical control. It may be just having a cabinets that are secured, like file cabinets that are well secured. Then your external hard drive is also an asset that can be prone to human error, right? So these are mistakes or oversights made by individuals. So what do? You provide training and make sure that you can detect these incidents on time before the data loss becomes a problematic situation. Then your third-party vendors are also your assets. So if you don't have adequate service level agreement with your third-party vendors, that will create a security risk also, right? So you must make sure that your agreements with your third-party vendors talks about data security, talks about data sovereignty, because you must define who owns the data. Who is the owner of the data? Yes, you are providing me a software, but who is the owner of the data? You must define all these things in your service level agreement so that if the business relationship goes sour, you own the data because it is your data, it is your customer records. They don't need to keep that data because it's not their own data. They are only a third party processor. So you must define all these things at the inception of the contract, right? So you must make sure that detailed security requirements and standards are vendors should be enforced to have certain standards. For example, you can say all our security vendors must comply with the Nigeria Data Protection Act. They may also have to comply with ISO standards. Do you understand? So what you should also implement is putting penalties for vendors who fail to meet the standard as the SLA as stipulated. So in terms of vulnerabilities, these are things you will likely face. We'll also look at the threat aspect, but this is something I want to emphasize. When you are doing this thing in-house, you are going to do it per device. So a laptop, for example, uh, would not just be what you put in the asset. You put the laptop, the department that use that laptop, because what a laptop in finance department may be exposed to in terms of vulnerability or threat may be different from what the laptop in IT will be exposed to based on vulnerability or threat. So I just try to make it simpler, right? So when you are categorizing your assets, for those who have done the asset inventory, right, you do it per device so that you understand every device, the threat and vulnerability they are exposed to. So let's move over to the threat aspect. Now, your core banking application may be exposed to a threat known as man in the middle threat. So, man in the middle attack is a kind of cybersecurity risk whereby the communication between two parties can be intercepted. It's just like you are making a phone call and somebody is at one end eavesdropping on your conversation. That would be a case of a man in the middle attack. And this things happens when your website is not too secured or your core banking application is not too secured. And when you go to the www.yourdomain.com, you are expected to see something like a padlock at the left hand side, right? That shows that the site is to some extent secured, right? So what controls can you put in place? You should make sure that all communications are encrypted. You understand? Using TLS and SSL. TLS simply means transport layer security. SSL means secure socket layer. So that there is no form of unauthorized access to the system. Now, The next thing you also need to look at is implementing multi-factor authentication, so that if one security protocol is breached, the next one can also form a security guide. A practical scenario is if you are coming to a office premises, there's a gate outside, right? When you break that gate and come in, there's also another reception, right? Before you get to the MD. So there are different layers of controls. But if it's just a case of once I open a door, I see the MD, then there's really no security, right? So there should be different controls before you get to the main data source. That is why multi-factor authentication is advisable, right? So let's move over to the next asset, which is laptop. One of the threats a laptop will face is data breach. Now, data breach simply means unauthorized access, most likely to sensitive data, either due to failure of your technology or failure of your process or due to human error, right? So that is what data breach means. And if likely this occurs, is going to have an impact on your organization. So what do? You can have what we call role-based access control, so that users are granted permission based on the role they play in the organization. And you do what we call security awareness training. Now, when you discover the threats, you now have to fill on the comment section things that should be done. Are you going to accept the risk? Are you going to transfer the risk to somebody else? Or you are going to designate a department that will handle this risk that has been identified? Now, for employee, one of the threats employee will have in your system is insider threats, because they have access to privileged information. So they can share this information with competitors or friends or even people who don't even need it, right? So you must understand that that human factor exists. And what can you do? Now, you can use technology to control all these things. And that is what is called audit trail. So if an employee visits any site or any part of your application, there's a digital footprint. So if you are now doing your forensic investigation, you can know who sent out this mail, at what time, using what device. And with that information, you can be able to detect during a forensic investigation who was responsible for that data breach. So what do you do under the comment section? You can say human resource department should enforce insider threat training, and IT should implement audit trail on all applications and systems. Now, your digital files too are also assets that may be prone to ransomware. You may see an employee receive a mail. If the employee is not knowledgeable, he may go and download the attachment, and that will not lead to a malware or ransomware attack. And somebody will not call you that you should pay a certain amount of money before they grant you access to your system. That is a case of a ransomware, from the word ransom, right? So now, what can you do in such a case? Now, one of the things you can do is to make sure that you have antivirus that are strong and can detect malicious link. Do you understand? If you have a very good antivirus, these things can be able to detect anytime that there is a risk, a potential risk. So if you are visiting any website that is not secured, it will give you a notification. Do you understand? So this will also help employees not to fall prey to all these hackers. And you can also implement spam email filters to block phishing and malicious mail by default. Do you understand? So having understood this, the next thing you need to do is to go to the comment section and let the board of directors and management know what are the actions. Maybe they need to provide funds to be able to procure antivirus. Maybe they need to provide funds to be able to implement a robust spam email filter. So you need to make sure that the comment section have actionable item and action owners Mr. A is to implement this, Mr. B is to implement this. Because as a CISO, your job is to inform your board of directors the security risk that institution is exposed to before an attack is successful. Because if an attack is successful and you have not informed them before now that the institution is exposed, it means you are negligent. But if you've exposed this thing and they don't take action, now you are exonerated. At least you let them, you've told them the clear picture. If they fail to invest in that technology that you told them, you cannot be held liable. So as a CISO, what you should be thinking every day is, how do I make the board of directors understand the security posture of the institution? Either it's a microfinance bank, either it's a mortgage bank, either it's a finance house. Your job every day is to say, board of directors, this is where we are currently in terms of security, threats, and vulnerabilities. They are to provide the funds. It is not your job to look for the money. Your job is to detect and advise. Please, if you have questions, you can drop it on the comment section. We'll have time where we'll address all your questions, right? So we'll go to policies and procedures. Now, policies and procedures will be exposed to privilege abuse. You understand? People can abuse their privilege because I'm an admin. I can abuse that privilege to be able to get data, right? And share data for my own personal need, right? So you should look out for privilege abuse. So what do you do in such cases? Permission should be granted based on job roles and responsibility. And you should put notification in such a way that if people are to access your system outside normal working hours, it should be documented. Anytime people want to access the core banking application, especially when they are admin users, there should be a timestamp so that at a regular basis you can review this audit trail. Look at it. When do people really log in that have admin accounts? Because most times they will do these activities during public holiday or weekends where there's little or no suspicion. So you must make sure that unusual activities are monitored, especially for admin account holders. And under the comment section, what you can put is there should be routine checks on admin account users. Yes, and there should be an audit trail report of all the activities so that somebody can also, like the Information Security Steering Committee, the ISSC, can review the activities of the admin to look at, okay, what have you logged in over a period of 7 days? At what time? With that, you can detect threats easily. So we'll move over to the next asset, which is your server. Your server may be exposed to a zero-day attack. A zero-day attack is an attack that is unknown, both to the vendor and both to the user, because it occurred on that same day. The vulnerability was exploited on that same day, and that was then something that was not prepared for. So there is no fix that is ready for it. You understand? So these things are likely going to happen. You understand? So what you need to do is to have penetration testing conducted to discover any weakness before they are exploited. So you should always review your penetration test reports, right? We usually send out penetration test reports every quarter to our clients. So once those reports come, try to look at it, try to study it. You understand? Don't just archive it or keep it. Look at it. Is there any threat that was discovered? And if there's any threat, talk to your IT department, talk to your vendor to correct it. You understand? You can also subscribe to threat intelligence services that will be giving you notification of any emerging threats or zero-day vulnerability. So under the comment section, IT can subscribe to this threat intelligence services portal. You understand? Some of them sends out newsletters. Some of them sends out a video explanation of all this threat and what action you should do. So you can look out for them, right? Then your CCTV can also be exposed to denial of service attack, right? Now, what do you do at this point? You also need to know that you must monitor traffic that come in and leave your system. And you should find a way to balance the traffic that any device will be exposed to. It's called load balancing. So that not one device will be too exposed. You understand? Not one device will be too exposed. So you must find a way to balance all these devices, right? Next, you have your physical document. Your physical document will be exposed to insider threat. We've explained this earlier. So what do you do in such cases? Make sure that anytime somebody wants to access a system, you can provide the person a temporary access and revoke it once the person is done with what he or she wants to do. Like a software vendor, you understand, may want to do some updates. So you just provide them a temporary access, and once they are done with their update, revoke their access. You can also have multi-factor authentication implemented. Do you understand? So under the comment section, you can transfer this to IT to implement. You understand? So your external drive will also be exposed to data breach. You understand? Because your flash drive, your hard disks can be misplaced on transit. And if customers' records are there, if business information are there, that will have a significant impact. So make sure that affected systems are isolated. And you can also have a auto wipe software installed on this drive so that once you detect it, you just format the drive immediately so that you know that you are not going to have any data breach, just the physical device that has been misplaced or stolen. Then your third party vendor may have privilege abuse issues, right? So what do you do in such cases? Do regular audit on your third-party vendors, right? And ensure that at the end of the day, all vendors have SLA that are signed and they meet the requirements that talk about data sovereignty, data integrity, and confidentiality. So I'll check the chat box for questions before we proceed. Keep your questions coming in, and I would try my best to address it. So let me go through the questions before we continue. Yeah, the slides will be shared with every participant. If you've been following us, we have a WhatsApp group. Let me share the WhatsApp group link. Once you're on that WhatsApp group, once we are done with this training, we'll also post it there, right? And we'll also send it individually to our clients, right? Someone said my screen is static. Apologies, maybe it's your network, but the slides will be shared, so you also have it, right? So the last one is sir, you're a little bit too fast. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. So sorry. Apologies if I'm too fast. Okay, someone is saying, can we have the name of that antivirus? Well, there are different kinds of antivirus in the market. You have Norton, you have Kaspersky, you have Quick Heal. But before you subscribe to any antivirus, go online, look at the review about the antivirus. You understand? So that you don't just look at the cost of the antivirus. What are the reviews about this antivirus before you subscribe to it? And the other antivirus that are more for corporate institutions, you understand? You can also look at them. Their endpoint securities also. So before you decide to use any technology, go and look at the review about that technology. There are so many websites out there whereby you can get these reviews. And from the reviews, you can be able to know which one to subscribe to. You can also send a mail to the support desk of the company and let them understand your business and see how they can provide a more detailed service, you understand, to you. So more questions, please. The WhatsApp group has been shared. Once you join the WhatsApp group, once this training is complete, you will get the information firsthand. But other people will also get it over the weekend, right? Because we'll be sending it in batches. So keep your questions coming in, and once your questions come in, we'll address it immediately. So let's take out a few minutes to address those questions, and then we'll move on. Okay, while the questions are coming, let's quickly talk about disaster recovery plan. So now, every financial institution should have a disaster recovery plan. So this is just a template. It's a guide. You can use this to develop yours. So this is not a must. You must follow this approach. But when you are drafting a disaster recovery plan, what you should have at the back of your mind is that there may be a day, there may be a day when our system will be hacked, where our system will be compromised due to human factor or environmental factor like fire, flood, earthquake, anything that will lead to us having disruption in services. So, how do we plan for that day? The day may never come, the day may come. So, this is a blueprint. First of all, you have to talk about the purpose. Now, in this document I'm sharing, the purpose of this document is to ensure the continuity of business operations after an event that is seen to be like a disaster, right? Okay, let me reshare this document. Apologies. So I'm sharing the document. Okay. Okay. 1 minute. Let me try and reshare the document again. Okay. Okay. I think it's better now. So I was talking about the purpose. You must define the purpose of your disaster recovery plan, which is to ensure that there's continuity of business operation in the event of a disaster. Anything can go wrong because of your process, your people, or your technology. That should not stop your business operation. And now, the scope of your disaster recovery plan should cut across all your systems, your critical system, your hardware, your applications, your staff. So it should cut across every facet of the organization. And you should have an objective, which is to ensure the safety of personnel, to minimize the impact of disruption, and to protect critical data and IT infrastructure, and to ensure that you resume critical business function as quickly as possible. Also, you can also look at compliance with regulatory and contractual obligations. These are the objectives when drafting your disaster recovery plan. Now, you should also have a team. Now, the team members should cut across your finance, your IT, your legal, your human resource, the facility, that's the people who manage the physical environment, so that every person with different skills and experiences on board. You have a team leader. The team leader may be the CISO. The team leader may also be somebody who is not a CISO, maybe the managing director or maybe a member of the board, but somebody that can coordinate every other facet of the organization when something like this occur. Now, you should also have people from the IT because they are the ones that will restore your systems and other technological devices that needs to be restored. Then you also have your business continuity lead. These are the people that will be making sure that uh, business continues, right? So those will be critical people that understand strategy management and can coordinate things. Then you have your communication lead, people that will be making the press statement, talking with the regulators, talking with the customers. Do you understand? These are the communication leads. So head of corporate communication, PR managers, you understand? People that can douse the tension, right? And the facility lead, the physical environment, people who understand the office settings, where are critical devices, where are these devices supposed to be kept, because your physical facility is very key. whoever is going to be in the recovery team must understand the organization, everything about the organization physical facility. Then you have your HR. People will be communicating with employees. Do they work from home? And how do they work from home? Do you provide them internet support? Do you understand? So that is your HR responsibility, right? Now, you also need to know what will lead to the disaster recovery plan to be activated. Those are the triggering events like natural disaster, technical incident, and human-made disruption like a cyber attack or terrorist attack. Then the process of declaring this a disaster. You first of all need to identify that it has occurred. Then you also have to evaluate the impact because there may be a disaster, but you are well prepared. So you don't need to activate your disaster recovery plan, right? So you need to do like an impact assessment. Then the disaster recovery team has to come together and decide, okay, we need to declare this event a disaster. Then how do we notify employees? How do we notify vendors? How do we notify customers? How do we notify regulators and every stakeholder? Because you need to issue a formal statement. That is why you must prepare for this before it occurs, to be well prepared for it, right? Now, the incident, once it's detected and you've evaluated the impact, of course, you need to let stakeholders know by issuing out press statement, and that's where the PRO and people come into play, right? So for time's sake, I will just go through the disaster recovery plan. You have a copy of this disaster recovery plan, but there are key areas that I need to let you know. So one of those key areas is the training aspect. So you need to prepare for this event. And how do you prepare? Every staff has to be carried along. So you must provide training sessions. Next thing that you also need to know is that you need to perform drills, simulation, right? So you can just tell staff that today we are going to envisage that there's a fire outbreak. What are the first things we should do, right? These are simulations. Do you get it? So that if something like that occurs, they know what to do. They know where to run to. You understand? They know what are the first things that should be done, right? So you can do kind of drills and simulations, right? And when you do these drills and simulation, you document it for information purpose. Then the disaster recovery team members, you must have their name, their phone number, and email readily available so that once such situation occurs, you know who to reach out to. And the key vendors that you will need in the course of the disaster recovery process, you must have informed them that, see, you are our core banking application person. We need somebody from your end. In case we have a serious disaster, we should be able to communicate with this person. You are our hardware vendor. We need someone from your end. You are the one who provides us with power, the one who manage our generators or other facilities. So you must have all these vendors' details readily available. You understand? So this template will be shared with everyone, and you can use that to simulate your own situation. So now the next thing I will talk about before we move on is the mandatory registration as data controllers and data processors. So the Nigeria Data Protection Commission has made it mandatory for institutions to register. Many of us have registered, many of us have not registered. But what you should know is that failure to register comes with penalty because every institution in Nigeria is expected to be captured by the Nigeria Data Protection Commission, right? And to do that registration, we can assist you, Flowleys, to guide you through the process because they've classified institutions under three cadres. You have the ultra high, you have the extra high, and you have the ordinary high level, right? And the deadline for this registration was extended to September. So you still have time to do this. And if you want to get this done, you can reach out to us. So I'm sharing a screen now that from the screen you can see if your institution has registered or not. So going to services.ndpc.gov.ng will take you to that link, right? So if you put the name of your institution, you will see that you are registered. So let me put my institution. You can see that Flowleys is already registered as a data controller and a data processor. So please endeavor to register, and once you do this exercise, organizations will take you more serious because they believe you understand how to manage data effectively. So keep the questions coming, and we'll wrap up. So we have few minutes to take your questions. Drop your questions on the comment section, and we'll address those questions. Okay. So okay. Okay. So I'm going to reshare the WhatsApp group because that will help you understand the whole process, because you can ask questions on the WhatsApp group and you'll be attended to. But let me address some of the key questions participants have asked. Um, yeah, the WhatsApp group. From there you get the slides. I've said that before. Uh, okay. Yeah, someone is asking, will certificate be issued at the end of the training? Yes. When you are done with the 12 modules, this is a 12 module training. We are on the fifth module today. So the next time we'll meet, we'll talk about the sixth module. So when you are done with the 12th module, you'll be well equipped. Then there'll be an exam you take and you get your certificate, right? But certificate can only be issued after you finish the 12 modules and you show that yes, you can pass that exam. Yes. Yeah, someone is asking if we conduct penetration testing. Yes, we conduct penetration testing. We conduct penetration testing. Yes, we do that. You can reach out to us and we'll get that done for you. Someone is asking, can we get the previous slides? Yes, you can get the previous slides. Join the group and make such requests. And the previous slides are already on the group, but you may not be able to download it because of WhatsApp settings. After a certain number of days, and downloads are unavailable, right? So, but try and join the group. Okay. Okay, someone is asking, what are the function of patches on our system? Now, I'll explain this with why do we eat food? We eat food to be healthy, right? The reason why you need to update your system is to make them more secured most times. Though some vendors, when you update your system, your application or device will start running slow because they want you to upgrade to a higher version. But most times, patches are there to make sure your system is more secured. Is that understood? Let me see more questions. Someone is saying, when will you talk about statement of applicability? Now, statement of applicability is a very interesting topic. Um, that most times comes when you want to do the ISO 2701, right? That is ISMS. And if you look at the CBN framework, statement of applicability is not a core component, but we'll look at a way of bringing it in because our training curriculum is designed and guided by the CBN risk-based cybersecurity framework. But it's a very interesting topic that you should know, statement of applicability. Very interesting topic. So I will see any of the modules in the CBN framework that can also be used to pass out that knowledge. Thank you for that. Uh, okay. Okay, how do I get those videos? If you go to our YouTube page, all those past trainings are there. You understand? So you can get those past videos. Trying to address. Okay, someone say, do we register for the NDPC? Yes, you have to register as a data controller. So you can reach out to Flowlist to guide you through this process so that you can be registered. So I will drop our email on the chat box. So you can follow us up and we would respond. So info@flowlist.com. Yeah, you can reach out to us. Okay, most of the MFBs use Bank One as their core banking application. This implies that the disaster recovery and business continuity plan are having direct dependencies on their core banking vendor. I really don't understand your question. Maybe you need to rephrase it. You need to rephrase your question, please. Okay, someone is asking, how can we update our CCTV software? Now, for every CCTV application you use, the vendor has a website, and if you go to that website, it will tell you the recent version, right? You know, there's a difference between update and upgrade. You understand? So you visit the website of that vendor, so you will know if you are running the most recent or you are running an obsolete model. Okay, someone is asking, can we know about metrics and measures of for risk assessment? We talked about this in the last module 4. Uh, we talked about this about in the last module, so you can go back, watch that video, and that would be understood. So we have just 2 more minutes. We just have 2 more minutes. So I will go to the quiz aspect. So I'll be asking key questions so that we can just evaluate participant knowledge. So the first question is, in a man in the middle attack, that is MITM, what role does the attacker play? We have option A, option B, option C, and D. So in a man in the middle attack, what role does the attacker play? So we have option A says they act as a trusted party. Option B say they remain undetected while capturing and possibly altering the communication. Option C says they only observe the communication without altering it. D says they encrypt the communication for secure transmission. So the most appropriate answer is B, right? The most appropriate answer is B. The next question says, what is the primary goal of a denial of service attack? What is the primary goal of a denial of service attack? We have option A, we have option B, C, and D, right? Someone said A. Is that the final answer? But let me take the options. To steal sensitive information from a server, to prevent legitimate users from accessing a service or network, to gain unauthorized access to a system, to spread malware across a network. The answer is B, right? To prevent legitimate users from accessing a service or network. The next question is, what is the recovery time objective? What is the recovery time objective in disaster recovery planning? We have option A, B, C, and D. A, the maximum allowable amount of data loss. B, the point in time to which data must be recovered. C, the maximum acceptable length of the time a system can be down. D, the time it takes to notify customers of a disaster. So what is the most appropriate answer? Is C, the maximum acceptable length of time that a system can be down. That is the recovery time objective, right? Many people didn't get this right. Only one person got it right. That is Oluwasegun Bashiru. Thank you so much for that. Then question 4, true or false? A disaster recovery plan should only focus on IT systems and ignore other business processes. Is it true or false? Is it true or false? Okay, the answer is false. Thank you, Mr. Adeshina. Thank you so much, Adediran. Then the final question, which of the following is a common human error that can compromise cybersecurity? Regular updating software, sharing password with colleague, using multi-factor authentication, encrypting sensitive data. Okay, it is sharing password with colleague. So thank you everyone who has been with us since 10 o'clock. I really appreciate everyone. Uh, for those on the WhatsApp group, please, in the next few minutes, the slides and the template will be shared on the WhatsApp group. So we'll give 30 minutes for those that want to still join the WhatsApp group before we upload this document. But in the next 30 minutes on the WhatsApp group, all these documents will be there for you to download and start using. Stay safe and stay cybersecurity conscious. Thank you.